You said, Ryan, stop selling, start helping. But Ryan, didn't we just have this conversation about selling? What do you mean when you say this?
Look, especially at the early stages, and that was what this was geared towards. At the early stages, we've got to be able to get the foot in the door. We've got to be able to develop a relationship. We've got to be able to stick around. If you're trying to sell a B2B SaaS solution, and their first question is, well, who else is this working for? And the answer is, nobody's bought it yet. You're going to keep getting the same conversation and the same answer over and over again, right? In a lot of cases, they may want to see social proof. They may want to see efficacy. They may want to see outcomes. And so very frequently, we have to give something else. You have to sell something else first. And the easiest thing to sell is help, right? And you could actually sell it. You can give it away. What I've always found, and early stage founders can be really hesitant to this, like, but we got to get some money in the door. I was like, okay, cool. So you want to keep just banging on doors that keep saying no? Is that going to help? No, right? Try to get yourself into a position where people are more likely to buy from you. How do we do that? Do they like you? Do they trust you? Have you already done something for them? Have you added value to their lives such that they would say yes, right? Imagine, let's use a really dumb example here. You walk up to somebody on the street and you're like, buy this food, buy this Persian food. And they're like, I've never tried Persian food before, man. I don't know what you're talking about, man. Cool, okay? We don't want to give away our value. Early on, founders get really scared, like, but we got to get money, can't give away our value. And then I'll talk to them like, okay, Ryan, we'll give away some value. What do? Did they give away anything really helpful? They're like, all right, I've got this Persian food and I really want you to try some of it, but I want to give away my secret sauce. I want to give my value. Here's some of the white rice. Try this. And we give away something that inherently doesn't have any value and isn't helpful.
Okay, I get it.
It doesn't help me to understand whether or not I want to try Persian food. You just gave me something that's completely bland and tasteless. Right? So often the appetizer that we offer, the help that we're trying to bring, like we try to limit the amount of our value that we're giving away because we're scared to give away the value. And in doing so, then we're asking people, we're saying like, hey, the thing I gave you didn't really like, but if you pay me, I'll give you something good. Who in their right mind trusts you in that situation? The answer is nobody, right? So I've always found the easiest way to do this is just be over the top helpful. Try to solve people's problems, whether that directly aligns with you getting paid or not at the early stages. Sometimes we have to earn our ability to sell. And sometimes that's just helping.
And that's why I like to tell founders all the time, they say to me, how come you're so helpful? And they're not paying me anything. And I say, my philosophy is I want to be so helpful. My free stuff, I want it to be more valuable than the stuff you pay for, so that later on you feel so guilty you just want to write me a check. I make that agreement and they're like, thank you. And those are some of the best relationships that continue to evolve and actually end up being very lucrative. JD, you're a sales guy. If you see this, stop selling, start helping, what goes through your mind?
Well, pretty much exactly what Ryan was just saying. When you go in and you start pushing that hard sell, especially to somebody that doesn't know you, doesn't yet trust you, may not even like you yet, you're gonna have a really hard time getting anything done. But again, when you come back to that point that Ryan made of, start off slowly, right? Show a little value, give them maybe a little something away, be helpful, show that you can actually solve whatever the problem is that they have. And you're willing to take a little bit of time, you have to figure out what that length of time you can deal with, but a little bit of time to show some value, to be helpful and show that you're a person that can be trusted. And this is often not a very quick process, but it's worth the effort if you have the runway to do so. Start to build up your market of paying customers. And to come back to an earlier point in the conversation, Ryan mentioned using LinkedIn and to use this as an example. When you're out there sharing content on LinkedIn, I think you know where I'm going with this, Ed. Ryan, when you go out there and you're putting out that valuable content, that thought leadership, whatever it is on LinkedIn, as an earlier stage startup, somebody who maybe doesn't have the biggest follower count or first degree connections count, you create, you take some time, you create this really valuable, maybe even visually appealing content, you put it out there and 3 people see it. How do you get that in front of a wider audience? Because I have a client having that issue right now. And again, I think Ed knows where I'm going with this.
Depends if there's a bit of a budget and we feel like that there is some reason, but sometimes we can't. So this is something I explained to somebody a few days ago. Sometimes we can't market. We have to sell. What do I mean by that? We may just have to go direct. Like we may not be able to put content out and bring people to us. In the beginning, we may just have to go to people. If you know your audience is on LinkedIn, you can probably tell me who they are, meaning we know their job titles, we know the size company they work in, we know the type of revenue it has, we know the region that they're from, whatever. If we know that, we can just do direct outreach. Maybe that isn't even direct outreach. Maybe it's indirect outreach. Maybe I'm commenting on their posts. I'm looking for public signaling that says, you are thinking about the problem that I solve, all right? So if I can see somebody out there going, oh man, another rough conversation with my co-founder, I can jump right into that conversation because I've had those conversations. I have hundreds of those conversations with people. I can be extremely empathetic and I can say, man, I know exactly what that's like, right? How did it end? Where did it go? Jump into the conversation. Find that public signal that says this person is in a point where they're receptive to the type of thing that I do, the type of help that I can provide, and then just lean in. Sometimes we cannot get there by just offering content. Now, the other side of that would be, doesn't matter. If you post that and it gets 3 views, but you know who your segment is and you have a little bit of a budget, you can pay to play. We can push that out in front of them. We can make sure that those people get 3, 4, 5, 6 impressions of your content. And then we start to understand, does that actually move the needle, right? When I show where I'm helpful, when I offer up resources, when I bring my expertise to the table, and we know we're getting it in front of people. That's the beauty of LinkedIn ads and that sponsored content mechanism, is that we can guarantee we're getting eyeballs on our stuff. So it depends a little bit on the situation, whether they have a budget or not, whether they're clear on their segment or not, and whether they have some reasonable understanding as to whether that content is going to resonate, or they're willing to pay to find out. Right? I had this conversation with somebody today. They wanted me to walk them through how to construct that funnel that I described earlier, that LinkedIn funnel. And I said, before we go and do this, before we go and build all the content, let's buy some of that traffic. Let's buy some of those users directly. They will be more expensive doing it this way, but let's get in conversation with a couple of those people to make sure that we want to spend the time, money, and effort to build that more complicated funnel. Tell the same thing to anybody that's like, we want to build organic traffic to our site. We've talked about this on this call before, I think, but if you want to build organic traffic to your site, I'm going to tell you, cool, let's go spend a couple $100 to $1,000 on paid search ads to see what happens when that traffic shows up. Before we spend the next month and a half cranking copy and 18 months waiting for the SEO results to catch up, let's see if this is a party we even want to attend. Let's make sure that the folks that show up here are the people we want. So how can we short circuit that process? So depending on the dynamics of that situation, JD, there's a number of ways that I would approach that.